Sweet. What's up, everybody, man? Thank you for jumping on with us for episode 25 of Expert Mentors Live. Got an awesome training lined up for you guys today, and cannot wait for Mr. Joel Perso to dive in. He's going to really challenge our thinking and definitely give us some amazing models and some framework to help us all make better decisions and really learn from his pain and his all of his lessons learned over the years. So before we kick it over and get it over to Joel, I want to share with you guys, if this is the first episode you're tuning into, or maybe you've checked out all 25, we appreciate you for taking the time and jumping on with us. But Expert Mentors Live is really about tapping into the horsepower of amazing human beings that we have in the Honey Badger Nation fast forward movement. And it's so cool. Yeah, we know the Kyle Whistles, the Daniel Beers, the Jay Kinders, the Michael Reeses, but there are some amazing, talented people that you guys might not be aware of. And what this platform, what these episodes allow us is to bring them to you guys and add massive value. And today's going to be no different. So really make sure that you guys are present. Make sure you have your notepad. I've got mine ready to roll. And we're going to dive in here with Joel, who's going to really, talk to us today a little bit about looking for principles and with the focus on growth, leadership, strategy, and personal development that he's had the ability to learn along the way, and mostly from tough times and mistakes. And like I said, I'm super excited. I've had the opportunity to work with Joel for many years, and he's definitely been somebody that's helped challenge my thinking, and couldn't be more excited to have him share with you guys today. So Joel, man, thank you for taking the time to jump on with us and add some massive value to the Honey Badger Nation and fast forward movement.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it. So when I offered to help on Monday, I didn't think it was going to happen quite this quickly, but but I'm excited.
He was like, hey, man, if you need any help, Expert Mentors Live, I said, hey, by the way, I may need some help this Wednesday. All right, let's do it. So, man, thank you for making it happen.
All right, let's get the screen here.
If you guys have any questions tuning in as we're going through, throw it in the chat, throw it in the Q&A. We'll definitely interject as we see that we can throughout the process. For sure, we'll make sure we get any questions answered at the end. And like I said, buckle up and let's rock and roll.
Awesome, thank you. Screen look okay?
Looks good.
All right. Let's see about switching. All right, there we go. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here. I've been a part of the NAEA for a long time, and the Honey Badger Nation kind of filled a lot of that, a lot of the awesome parts that I loved about the NAEA, the community, the sharing, partnering. Jay always says, what if we put all of our little fires together and made one big fire? So excited to be here. Like John said, my name is Joel Perso. 33 years old. Our team here in Milwaukee has been part of EXP since July. So we're just getting rolling here, but excited to be a part of it and excited to get to share with you guys today. So today we're talking about looking for principles, and I'll get into what I really mean by that in just a second. But to give you a little background about who I am and why this is such an important topic to me, I first got into real estate in 2012. I was on the operations side of a 6-person team doing about 100 deals a year. So I started processing transactions. I was helping with payroll. I was running marketing campaigns, managing some relationships with our lender partners, things like that. And I was the only non-salesperson on the team at the time. So this operational responsibility just sort of fell to me naturally. It's the way I'm wired. I'm a high C on the disc, if you guys know that one. I'm a pretty classic 5 on the Enneagram, if you know that one. So having organizational and analytical bent, it was a real natural fit for me to come alongside our team leader and start building those systems that were going to help us move faster. So that team grew from from 2013 when we did 129, we went 200, 275, 330, and then hit 400 transactions in just that 4-year time. So I've been a part of this kind of fast-growing, chaotic real estate team that we ended up taking independent in 2016. So along the way, from that growth, from that chaos, from taking the team independent, I made a lot of mistakes, and as I reflected on those, and been lucky enough to have coaches like John and Jay help me reflect on those, these principles started to emerge of how can I take this lesson from this mistake and apply it to a future situation without having to go through every experience individually, try to learn a new lesson just from that one. Are there ways that I can put more tools in the toolbox, so to speak, of how to deal with things that come up in the future? So that's where this idea came from. So since that team brokerage, I ended up leaving in 2017. We started Anchor Point Realty in Lake Country, a little bit west of Milwaukee, a small team, and we were an independent brokerage again as well. And then also in 2017, I started working with 2 friends of mine who I worked with originally in real estate on VRX Media, which is a digital marketing and media centered around real estate. So we do HDR photos, Matterport 3D tours, drone videos. We do virtual staging, and a few other products kind of along real estate marketing. So VRX has grown in just 3 years to we're in over 20 cities now, and over 1.5 million in revenue this year, which is double where we were last year. So 2018, I became a partner in VRX, and that's really been a big focus for us. So again, now, I'm again part of a fast-growing company. What that means for my experiences is, again, more complexity, more chaos at times, and more chances to learn from some of these missteps that we've made along the way. So that's what I'm up to right now. So again, all this to say,
give everybody some context. What the projection for VRX, like the next year's revenue projections and the year after that, just to give everybody some context of Joel's background of how to deal with fast growth, right? And so I know a lot of you guys on the call, we're all experiencing with EXP, and we see the challenges from the outside. And some of you are accelerating growth as well. And so like what Joel's going to talk about today will really benefit you more than you'll ever know about dealing with growth. And so Joel, give them some context so they can kind of get their heads around it.
Sure. So right now we've got in our 20 markets, our kind of corporate hub is in Milwaukee. And we've got just over 50 people in the company between our contractors in the field and our back-end staff. And our goal is adding markets, because we've defined and got a pretty good idea at this point now of what we need to do to launch a market, the ramp time that we can expect, and then ultimately how fast can we get it profitable. So we're looking at our business in terms of profit per market. Our idea here is instead of trying to get 50% market share in one market, we're trying to get 1% market share in 50 markets. We know that we can repeat that and scale it that way. So we've got some things to figure out on the back end. We've, like any growing business, we've got things that used to work that don't work anymore, and then we need to fix or implement something new. But our sales process has been effective, so that if we we can figure out that back end, we can double again next year. Eventually, our goal is to be in 100 markets by 2024. So along with that, we're trying to figure out strategically, how do we grow? How fast do we grow? Where are the key times where we need a new position? So there's a key hire, and that's always a challenge. So, the organizational design is an ongoing challenge. Everybody in our company works remotely. So sound familiar to a lot of you guys. We don't have a physical office. I'm in our real estate office right now, but VRX doesn't have an office. So we have those challenges with building a culture, with communication, those kind of things too. So it's a really exciting company, exciting time right now, but definitely not without its challenges.
For sure. And you guys, if they're in your market, you need to check them out and see how they would align with your business services and what you guys are doing. So for sure, check that out. Make sure Joel, we'll give the information at the end, the best way to catch with Joel. So all right, brother, let's keep rocking and rolling.
All right, sounds good. So I'm excited about this presentation because I think, reflecting on the last 5, 6 years, 7 years is I really believe that any success that I've had, it has been directly as a result of my desire to learn, hunger to learn, and then ultimately ability to learn. So some of these lessons, are hard won from, like I said, the mistakes and the missteps, but, having people in my life and then having these experiences to learn from, has been really the source of a lot of that growth and then a lot of the success that we've had. So what are we talking about for principles? And this idea of the principles, I actually, kind of first got exposed to in the NAEA. So I couldn't find an embarrassing picture of you, John. I'm sorry.
They're out there.
But we got Jay and Mike and Al, and I first got involved, our team did first in 2014, and then my first mastermind event 2015. And what the mastermind was for me, man, was just like gasoline on a fire of wanting to learn, wanting to grow, wanting to get better, getting exposed to these ideas about mental models, the tools in the toolbox idea, and then ultimately the principles of, can we learn enough, and can we think well enough and problem solve well enough to move faster, and ultimately, hit our goals. So the NAEA for me still is, a massive influence. Feel very lucky to be, a part of that mastermind group for years. And, to anybody who is a honey badger but doesn't have a lot of exposure to the NAEA, and definitely get plugged in because it is just a, never-ending well of awesome resources. So principle. So this is from Ray Dalio. He wrote a book called Principles, and founder one of the most successful hedge funds of all time. So it says here, principles are concepts that can be applied over and over again in similar circumstances as distinct from narrow answers to specific questions. Every game has principles that successful players must master to achieve winning results. So does life. Principles are ways of successfully dealing with the laws of nature or the laws of life. Those who can understand more of them and understand them well know how to interact with the world more effectively than those who know fewer of them or who know them less well. So again, what we're after here, we're after more tools in the toolbox. Are there things that we can learn, that we can apply in the future so that we don't have to, stumble our way through the next challenge that comes, the next decision that we're faced with? Another reason this is so important is as humans, our brains, we're naturally bad at drawing conclusions from single events. We look at one thing and we make a blanket statement about it, and if it's not a principle that we've spent time thinking about and that can apply in future circumstances, we end up with bad decisions. My grandpa smoked his whole life and never got cancer, so cigarettes can't be that bad. Well, my friend was in a car accident and he wasn't wearing his seatbelt and he was fine, so I shouldn't wear my seatbelt. If we isolate an incident, we're bad at drawing conclusions from that. So principles are things that can help us make better decisions because they can apply more broadly. So I have some specific ones I want to share, mostly from my mistakes. But before we get to that, I want to kind of share a pre-principle. And this one that's been really influential for my way of thinking about things. And that principle is that the question isn't, is it true? The question is it useful? So when we're talking about these principles today, if you're like me, what you're going to do is you're going to hear a principle and you're going to start picking it apart right away, and you're going to try to find an exception to it, and you're going to close it off in your mind and say, oh, I don't think that's true. So if you're like me and you're that analytical and critical, don't do that. Is it true is not the right question. And then if on the other end of the spectrum, you might be saying, all right, cool, I'm taking notes, I wrote it down. Joel seems like a smart guy and I'm going to take his word for it. So again, the question isn't, is it true? The question is it useful? So is this something that I can use to better understand the world or make better decisions? So I'll give you a real good example of this. My favorite example is personality tests. So again, if you know the Enneagram, I'm a type 5, the investigator, intense, cerebral, perceptive, innovative, secretive, isolated. So if you look at this and I said, hey, I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, and you said, all right, well, I guess that tells me all I need to know about you. Well, of course, people aren't that simple, right? There's that great scene in Interstellar where Matthew McConaughey says, talking to the principal, and he says, are you telling me it takes, 2 numbers to measure your ass, but only 1 to measure my son's future? He's talking about, pant sizes versus test scores. Of course, things aren't that simple. So we look at these, and if the question you're asking when you look at a personality test is it true? Well, not only is the answer, well, of course it's not true because it's way too simple. But if you try to make it a true or false question, you remove its usefulness as well. So a lot of you guys might know the disc. Same thing here. If you say, well, I'm a high C, and if you think that tells you everything need to know about me, like, that's crazy. Am I the same as every other C? Do you need to communicate with me the same as any other C? And I had somebody tell me in a meeting once, oh, you're a high C, that means you're not creative. I said, oh, wow, man, okay. So again, if we're asking the question, is it true? Well, the answer is probably not, but then it doesn't become useful. And if we ask the question, are these things useful? Yeah, absolutely. These can be incredibly useful for screening applicants, for understanding yourself better, for understanding broadly, how to communicate with somebody else based on their personality type. But does it tell you everything you need to know about somebody? Of course not. So the question isn't, is it true? The question is it useful? So think about that as we're going through these principles here. Because ultimately, our minds want things to be black and white. We want them to be that either or, because it's simpler. Our minds naturally do that, but most things in life aren't. And if we try to make them that way, it closes the door on really learning more about it. So that's even more pronounced in Western cultures, where we want things to be black and white. We want them to be simple because it, kind of seems like they should be. Well, there should just be an answer to that question. It should just be black and white. It should all be an equation, but it's not, it's just not. So recognizing that, our brains tend to work that way, and then also recognizing it's kind of a cultural thing. We can take a step back from that and catch ourselves and think a little bit more clearly about it. So as we're going through these, that's what I want us to keep in mind is, the question is not, is that true? The question is that useful? So one of my favorite thinkers, Richard Feynman, who's a Nobel Prize winning physicist, said uncertainty is good. It allows for deeper understanding and new discovery. So again, if you try to make something black and white, if you're certain, if you shut that door, then there's nothing more to learn from that question or wrestling with that situation. So the specifics today, I want to share a few about leadership and goal setting. Leadership, because that's always an important topic. It also happens to be an area where I've made the most mistakes, so I've learned the most painful lessons. And then goal setting as well. We're kind of in our 2019 strategic planning and goal setting time. So sharing some of the mistakes I've made with goal setting right now and principles I've picked up from that, hopefully will be valuable this time of year. I added one for productivity and one for problem solving, and primarily those because those are the ones that people ask about most often. How can I be more productive? What can I do to focus better? And then ultimately problem solving is a skill that we can develop and that we can use in every area of our life forever. And then last, we have a couple on why we decided to switch our small brokerage over to EXP. Some principles that influenced our thinking about it, and then some of the practical ways that looked. It might be a little bit different take than some of the, why we switched that we've heard before. So hopefully that will be valuable as well. All right, so we will dive in. Principle kind of number one here is leadership is communication. So again, I understand that leadership is more than just communication. That's not what we're saying here, but the principle, easy to understand and to drive home. Leadership is communication. They're so deeply intertwined. And I have a few examples, and I'll share some stories about the mistakes, but why this has become such a powerful principle for me as a leader is seeing firsthand the damage that's done with poor communication, and the value that can be created with good communication. So I'll share this kind of first one here. And the first, I guess, sub-principle is people need to know what's going on. So when we're about to take our team independent, we had all new branding, new name, new office. There's a picture of our office, what it ended up being. And there's a lot of disruption going on in the team. Everybody's, a little bit nervous about it. It's a big change. Are people going to be okay with our brand? How is my tight little community that I had in my office going to change? There's fear, there's uncertainty, and it was becoming a distraction. So as we were building out the office, it became apparent maybe a month before we're going to launch that it was going to be really tight if we were going to hit our deadline to be open in time. And so I'm talking to contractors and our architect, and we might hit it, but there's a pretty good chance that we're not going to hit it. And so in an effort to not let this become a distraction, I didn't tell the team anything. They had no idea that we might not be able to work in our office the first day we're supposed to be open for business. Well, we're out of our old office. We can't stay there. We told our broker we were leaving. We were gone. So I didn't want it to become a distraction. What ended up happening was, all right, it's launch day. It was the first day of our new company. Everybody, we show up, well, we don't have any internet. There's half the desks aren't put together. The office is not ready to work in. So what ended up happening from my intention to not cause a bigger distraction, and it ended up being a way bigger disruption because people felt confused. Why didn't we know about this? What am I supposed to do today? Where am I going to go work? We call in our lender partners. Can we use your office? So, what I really got from that is we hire good people. They're smart and understanding, and they need to know what's going on. They can deal with whatever's going on if we let them know what's happening and then let them know what the plan is. They're going to deal with it. They're going to be fine. It would have been way less of a distraction if I would have told them a month ago, hey guys, we're a little behind schedule. I don't know if we're going to be able to hit our deadline here. Here's some ideas for what we can do in the meantime. So, this first one here, leadership is communication, is people need to know what's going on in the business. This, kind of shut up and do your job, mentality that hopefully is kind of a bygone era of management. It just doesn't work. We talk about hiring great people, retaining great people, coaching, training, having cultures that are strong, that, promote creativity and problem solving. And if you keep people in the dark, and it is just like shooting yourself in the foot for what's going to happen in your culture. And it's also, it was a huge breach of trust with our team. So every time until I kind of won back trust, it was, well, what else is happening? Is there something else going on? Is there something else that we don't understand? So not only was it a distraction for that week, we weren't ready to work in the office. It was a breach of trust and took me a long time of being, really, really open, really, really transparent with the team before they started feeling like, again, all right, Joel's telling us the whole picture. We understand what's going on. And now, we don't have to worry about it, and we can just get to work. So number one here, people need to know what's going on.
Yeah, and I think too, part of the the takeaway here too is, and hopefully everybody caught it, was, Joel believed that he was doing the right thing, right? So it's always assume positive intent. People always try to do the best that they can based upon the knowledge that they have, right? And the beliefs that they have. So, the takeaway also is like, Joel wasn't trying to, he was looking out for everybody, right? He thought he was doing the best that he possibly could. So that's, what we talk about all the time. Always assume positive intent, understand the best, that people are trying to do the best that they can with the information that they have. And so it's absolutely key. We call it, communication saturation. You cannot communicate enough.
Hmm.
I love Vern Harnish's little take on it. That is that, if they're not ending your sentences or mocking you, you haven't repeated yourself enough. And as a lot of drivers in organizations, the high D personalities, that's a struggle, right? You know, C person. I mean, like, get it into a system of process. I'll repeat myself. I don't have a problem with it. If you get your high drivers, they think, they want to, I should tell you one time, you should get it. And that's just, it doesn't work that way. So over communicate. It's okay to repeat yourself. And that's a huge principle. That's a great takeaway. So good stuff.
So I guess a little side note here, for people who aren't leading a company or even leading a team right now, obviously you need to lead yourself, but then you can also lead a process. So if you're an individual agent, you are leading a transaction. So you need to take responsibility for, the communication with your client, with the lender, with title, with the agent on the other side. So just because you're not leading a company or a team, it doesn't mean that these principles don't apply. So if you're leading a process or a project, think about a real estate transaction like a project that you need to lead through to completion. And then, hopefully you can still connect with some of these principles. All right, so number 2, people need to know why. So not only, what's going on, but people need to know why. And this is one that I struggled with. And I don't have any kind of big blow up examples. This is like a class of mistake that I've made of tending back towards that. I don't have time to explain it to you. We're all busy. I just need you to go do it. Would you just do it? Please just go do your job. Don't worry about it. You need to trust that I'm making good decisions, or that we're making good decisions as the leadership. And what it ultimately leads to is people who are disengaged. How can we sit down with employees or prospective employees or team members, and we're asking them about their why. Hey, why do you get up in the morning? What is your big why? Why do you want to be successful in real estate? Why? We talk about this all the time. What's my why? What's the big why? But people need to know that for every major decision, especially when it comes to change. Hey, why are we doing this new thing? So a recent example from VRX is we just rolled out a new payroll system. Seems like a fairly straightforward thing. Nobody's pay is getting changed. The schedule's not changing. It's still, nothing's really changing except for me, making our lives easier. And so we sent out that, not enough explanation, not enough why of this change happening. And we started getting tons of questions back. Oh, well, can I do this? Or why is this happening? Is my pay changing? Am I still going to be able to do 2 direct deposits? Whatever, 100 questions. And people were just nervous that they didn't know why. So when we took another step with that and explained, well, we've got to do this it's going to make compliance easier for us. It's going to save a ton of time. It's going to consolidate 2 systems into one. It's going to make us more efficient. It's going to, give you online access to your own pay stubs, all those kind of things. When we stopped and explained why, nobody had a problem with it. Okay, that makes sense. But especially when there's a change, people need to know why to get on board. And a quote here that I found recently, we're simply far more likely to accept a change if we understand the reason for it. Interestingly, our acceptance seems to hinge less on how much we like the reason and more on how much sense the reason makes to us. Even if the change fails to benefit us, even if it causes us harm in some way, if our sense of fairness is satisfied, we're far more likely to accept and even embrace it. And I was kind of thinking the article that I pulled this from, they were kind of, the conclusion was, well, we don't really know why, our minds work this way, but they do. And so we need to respond accordingly. But thinking about it, I mean, what I think is, if people don't know why, they're going to draw their own conclusions. And that can be a really dangerous thing. Why wasn't I invited to that meeting? Well, it must be because my opinion's not valued. Oh, wonder if I'm going to get fired. Why wasn't I included? Why didn't they ask me before they made that change? So, we're going to draw our own conclusions. And if we let our minds wander, or our team members' minds wander, what are the chances they end up on the right conclusion? It's not very high. So, I think that's a big part of why people need to know why. And then, to be bought into something, we have to understand, what's the reason for it. So, this again, a lesson that I would have thought I learned, but made the mistake at our last strategy meeting. We had a team member who we didn't invite to the meeting. And this exact thing happened. He didn't know why he wasn't at the meeting, and he drew a bad conclusion. And it caused a strain in our relationship that we had to, repair. Apologize to him for not being clear. We didn't communicate well enough why that was happening. And so it could be these, these little things that people are going to draw their conclusions if they don't understand why things are happening. And when there's a lack of that that's happened in the past, or when there's a breach of that trust, or a failure in the communication, that takes some time. You might have to overdo it a little bit for a while that trust is restored. What you'll find is, the more, as a leader, the more you are doing this, the more you're communicating this way, the easier it's going to be for people to get on board. The less questions they're going to ask. You might not have to do it for every little decision, but you have to build up that track record of, there's nothing being hidden here. Here's why we're, making these decisions.
Super hard for most people to get on board with anything and support any initiative, strategy, what the company's trying to accomplish, if they don't understand, right? And it is dangerous if you allow people to draw their own conclusions, because they're basing it on their beliefs. And the thing that we all have to understand, just because you believe it to be true doesn't mean that it is. And so it really is a critical leadership component to, you have this vision, these initiatives, what you're doing. Just explain it to your people. They'll be more bought in, and they'll really get behind and support and make things a lot easier for you.
Yeah, definitely. And people want to know that their work has meaning. And if they don't understand, what's happening or why, it's really hard for them to make that connection between, that job I'm doing today and the big picture of the, company vision. So
that's huge, man. You nailed it right there. People want to add value. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of amazing people over the years, and every single one of them really comes down to that they just want to add massive value back to the marketplace, to their team, to their communities. And so it's hard for them if they don't know what they're doing is adding value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Good stuff, man.
All right. So third one on the on leadership is communication. People need a voice, even if they don't have a say. And this one I'm pulling pretty strongly from Patrick Lencioni from 5 Dysfunctions of the Team, and I'll show that slide next. But the principle here is, if you want people to buy in to the decisions that are being made, to the direction of the company, the direction of the project, there has to be a venue for them to have a voice in what's going on. So this doesn't mean that everything goes to a vote. It doesn't mean decision making by committee. What it means is, if people have a voice, if there's a venue for them to say what they think, share their opinions, and you still decide not to take that opinion and go the direction you had planned, or go a different direction, people can get on board if they've had the chance to speak their mind about it. If they don't, again, our minds wander. We draw conclusions, like you said, from our beliefs, from our experiences, and it opens the door for bitterness, and again, for disengagement, if they don't feel like they're valued, because they don't have a voice. People will understand, especially in a group that's larger than a couple people. You're not going to get everybody to agree on everything, but having that place to share, to speak, is so important. And there's another one we missed, especially when there are decisions being made that are going to affect people in the company, and those people are not involved at all, man, that's devastating to a culture. You can make the decision, you can set the tone, but involve them in that process, have that discussion. You might get a great idea because they're the ones going to be working out that process. But even if you don't, you get buy-in because they've been heard. So what we used to do is we had one Tuesday a month, we had a town hall meeting. Anybody could ask any questions of our leadership team, share any opinions on decisions we were making. We'd have, announcements, and people had a chance to just say, I don't get it. I don't think that's a good idea. And we could address those concerns or those fears directly and say, here's another chance to say why we're making that decision, and ultimately to, include everybody. So, we've had employee engagement surveys. We've had specific surveys for specific questions that we want feedback on. But, people definitely need a voice, even if they don't have a say.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. The thing that, we, especially as you guys are growing fast, is that we all have blind spots. And so just given the size of the company, even Joel's position with VRX today is not going to be the same this time next year. And so you want to genuinely crave that feedback, because we all have blind spots, and your team that's in the trenches has different viewpoints, and they see things that you don't quite see. And it could be one little thing that moves a degree or two of course correction that saves years, right?
mm-hmm.
Saves thousands of dollars. So embrace that feedback. They're in the trenches. Crave that perspective, because like I said, we all have those blind spots. We need help being revealed.
Yeah, absolutely. So that right in the middle here, lack of commitment is where this one plays in. So, you don't need things to be unanimous, but you do need consensus. And building consensus is how you avoid the dysfunction of lack of commitment here. So again, people will get on board if they've had a chance to be heard, even if they don't agree with the decision. People can commit to something even if they don't agree with the specific decision that's being made. And that's a factor of, culture. That's a factor of believing in the vision of the company and the mission, believing in the leadership. But, it doesn't have to be unanimous, but there has to be consensus to move forward. All right. So wrapping up those three from kind of the broader principle of leadership is communication. It's people have to know what's going on. They have to know why. And they have to have a voice, even if they don't have a say. So moving on to goal setting, I'm going to do the same thing, kind of a broader principle, and then a few sub-principles or points below it. And goal setting is one that's really important to me because, I've seen the consequences of getting it wrong, both as a company and then as, leading the goal setting process for the team members as well. And, making this link to between goal setting and leadership, and then goal setting to execution, has been one of the biggest kind of ahas for me, of seeing directly how what goals we choose influence the behaviors and ultimately, the outcomes that we have, good and bad. So I want to make that connection today between, goal setting and then, setting the tone for execution. So I guess the sub-principle number one here is you have to lead goal setting. Obviously for the company, if you're the leader, or the team, if you're the leader, that is your job to set the team goals, company goals, but you need to lead goal setting for your team members as well. And this is one that, man, we goofed up so many times before we really started to figure it out. We made mistakes like, well, just bring me your goals for 2019 and then we'll talk about them. Well, somebody, who did 20 deals last year comes and says, I'm going to do 80 deals next year. And we're like, all right, great, cool. That's really exciting. Wow, what a big goal. I love the ambition. But if we're honest with ourselves, we have to say, well, all right, well, what is this person capable of? And more importantly, all right, what is your plan to quadruple your business this year? Is that realistic? And, a lot of the times, if we're not involved in the process and helping lead that process, it ends badly and ends up being, unmotivating instead of motivating for that person. So another example we had is this idea here. Different people have different goal setting needs. So we had a guy in our team who, what was most motivating to him is if he set a pie in the sky goal, I'm going to do 100 deals next year. And that would get him fired up all year long. And he might end up at 60 or maybe even 50. He massively fell short of his goal, but setting something really ambitious was so motivating to him. So when we sat down, understanding that about him, that was okay for him to do, because we knew that December, when he knew there was no chance that he was going to hit his goal, that goal was still going to motivate him. And that was the type of goal setter he was. We had the opposite extreme on our team too, which was if she set a goal of 100 transactions and she did 99, she was devastated to the point where it knocked her off course. It ruined her momentum. So when we were working with her, we need to say, all right, well, what's realistic? What are we capable of? What's the plan to get that? And ultimately it was better for her to set the bar a little lower and surpass it because of what that was going to do to her mindset. So if you don't understand, how yourself, but then your team members, how they act and respond in relation to those goals, you get it wrong. So we got it wrong with the girl in this scenario because we pushed her to set a more ambitious goal. And when it became clear in probably, September, October, that she was not going to hit that goal, it killed the rest of her year because not hitting a goal was just devastating to her. So we learned that about her. We have to set it a different way. But we also can't expect our team to, kind of intuitively grasp these things. They might not be reflecting on what kind of goal setter am I, what really motivates me, or what's going to, hinder my progress. We have to lead that process. So we need to do that, obviously, for our companies, for our teams, but for our team members. If you miss this part, if you get it wrong, a goal becomes either an anchor that weighs you down, or it becomes something that sucks your motivation and your momentum instead of adding to it. So number one here is we have to lead the process of goal setting. All right, number two, man, this is another one that we goofed up pretty bad, is you need forecasts and goals. I was part of a strategic planning meeting one time. I wasn't in a leadership role. I was just in the room, but the way we set the goals for the year was the team leader gave a really inspiring speech. And then he just starts, pointing at people. How many deals are you going to do? How many deals are you going to do? And it was like that Oprah moment of like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, but for deals. And everybody's, of course, they're all excited. They're inspired after this speech. And they're like, I'm going to do 50. I'm going to do 75. And it's like, yeah, we're writing them down on the board. And at the end, we totaled them all up. And that was the goal for the year. And it's like, it was completely a ridiculous process. Because there was not only was there no real thought given to, are these even attainable goals or even healthy goals, there was no discussion of what are we projecting and what are we forecasting for next year. And the danger here for a company, for a team, or just on your own, is if you base a lot of decisions on your goal and then you don't hit that goal, it can be devastating for your business to the point where things like that put companies out of business. So we want to make a forecast, a projection. What do we think is realistic for this next year, this next quarter, however we're setting them, and then have a separate, goals that we're reaching for. And for me, I want to be conservative in these forecasts. We're going to look at what's the market going to do. Is it realistic that team member or that team member is going to drastically increase their production? If we think yes, why do we think that's a realistic possibility? The answer can't always be, oh, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to do more deals, or this is going to finally be the year where I get disciplined with prospecting, even though I've never done it in my career before. So, are these forecasts, are they realistic projections of what we can expect for this upcoming year. And then you want to base your decisions on your forecasts, not on your goals. And we put ourselves in a massive financial pinch one year when we made all of our budgeting decisions, our marketing budget, our ad spend. We made these decisions on these goals, and even though we only fell a little bit short of that goal, it put us in a huge bind because we didn't have a forecast that we based them on that we know we could hit the forecast. Now we're going to go chase that goal. So especially when it comes to financial decisions, base financial decisions on your forecast and not on your goal. And that was a huge aha, and we did it that way in the future. And then if we didn't hit a goal, we were okay because the goal was something meaningful above and beyond what we thought our projections were going to be. And it's in that space, I think, where the real profit happens.
Yep, for sure. Absolutely.
All right. And then this is the one that ties a little more directly into how goal setting affects execution and more mistakes. So the principle here is to set effective goals, you have to be clear on the vision. And that's got to be step one. So the definition for vision that I like, it's Jim Collins from Beyond Entrepreneurship. He says vision is your core values plus your purpose plus your mission. And those are the components of your vision. So in his definition, a mission it's a clearly defined goal. He likens it to the mountaintop. This is the thing that we're chasing right now. He says the vision is like the North Star, something you're always going towards, but that you can never achieve. So a purpose should guide your company for 100 years, he says. A mission is something that you're working on right now. It has a clearly defined end date and goal, and everybody knows when we accomplish the mission. So again, the vision, the core values, the purpose, and the mission. And these are the components of the vision. So here's why this is so important, because it's easy to let a goal lead you off track if you're not really clear on what the vision is. I'm gonna give you an example for us that ended up being a huge problem. So we set a really ambitious production goal, and we knew we were going to need to really nail some marketing. We were going to need to get way more efficient on our back end. We were going to add more agents. We were going to need to do a lot of things. It was an ambitious, kind of BHAG type goal. But what we did was we didn't have it clearly tied to where we wanted to go as a company, and it ended up putting pressure on our strategy and then ultimately what we chose to execute on to pursue that goal. And the goal led us off track. So the goal, it became kind of growth for growth's sake, as opposed to we need to accomplish this goal because this is a concrete step forward in achieving our mission, moving towards our vision. It became inconsistent with who we said we were because it wasn't clear enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's got to be clear, right? Because it drives your actions, right? What are you doing daily that's in alignment? And one thing too on the vision that you have to be crystal clear on is that how Joel lined it out, and what Jim Collins talks about is that it all starts with your core values. And really, those are your decision making filters, and you have to make sure your goals are in alignment to your values, because if not, then you'll never achieve your goals because it'll feel wrong. And when it feels wrong, it's because there's a core value misalignment. You're not aligned to who you are or who you aspire to be. So those values are critical. Then comes that guiding star, and then the mission. And this is all has to be done first, like what Joel was saying. So the right activities that we're taking today are moving us closer to that overall vision.
Yeah, definitely. And it's easy to miss, and if it's not clear, it's easy to compromise. And so we started making small compromises because we were chasing the goal instead of the vision, and they weren't aligned. So, man, is that is that new agent we're interviewing really the best fit? They're pretty good. I think maybe they would do good in if we plug them into our culture, they'll be great, you know. And we make a compromise because we're focused on that growth, focused on hitting that goal, and that pushed us to compromise. Or hey, we're gonna launch this new campaign, even though that might hurt our profitability because we're focused on growth. And it became growth was the goal, and I feel like we lost sight of why we wanted to grow. Well, the reason we wanted to grow in the first place was to make a bigger impact on the real estate community, in Milwaukee. And losing sight of that, it was just, now it became, we got to grow because that was our goal.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get off track if the goals are not aligned with the vision. And if you don't know the vision, you got no chance of alignment, right?
Right.
Sure. So then one other way that this kind of balances out and into execution is, this can help keep you on track with it, is awesome book, Great Game of Business, Jack Stack. Jay actually told me to read this book when you guys were looking at employee stock option programs within the NAEA. So I remember having that conversation a couple years before EXP was even on the radar. So man, they sure nailed it.
Crazy. Yeah.
But so the idea here is having a balance sheet goal and a P&L goal. And what that means is if you want to set a goal for revenue, for sales, for gross commissions, there's nothing wrong with that, because that can be really motivating for a team. If we're going to hit this lofty goal of sales as a team, people can really easily tie that into what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's easy to track. It's easy to put up in front of the team and show where we're at with the progress. Problem is, again, if it becomes growth for growth's sake, if it's not balanced out, it can be too easy to compromise. Who wants to have $1 million and not keep any of it, right? We hit our revenue goal, we hit our GCI goal this year, and we took on a bunch of debt, and we hired some bad agents, and is that really the goal? Well, of course not. So, the best way we found out in a business setting, at least, was, have that revenue or sales goal balanced out with that balance sheet goal. So profitability, either percentage or, dollar amount. And then when we come to crossroads where we say, all right, if we pursue this idea that's going to bring us closer towards our revenue goal, is that going to hurt us in our profit goal? And then now you have, an educated decision to make, but at least now you're making a decision to say, let's take the risk on going after the revenue, or let's not take the risk on going after the revenue. Let's make sure we're on steady ground with profits. So, and this was a big contributing factor to why that partnership in the previous company, ultimately we parted ways, was we kept butting heads on how do we make decisions in light of these goals. And I really wanted to focus on profit, and he really wanted to focus on growth. And because there was a little bit of misalignment there, that got in and caused a ton of damage, not only in our relationship, but then also in our inability to make good decisions, which for a long time we had been really good at making good decisions as a partnership and as a leadership team.
Right.
So these slight misalignments can get into a team and really fester. So balance out the goals that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great distinction for everybody. So Joel, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I know you and I had talked about kind of your decision making going to EXP. I think that's a great framework. I definitely would love for you to hit on that and give everybody something to think about as they're having conversations with agent attraction with other people moving forward, and this could be a good tool, good asset for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we could post these slides for the couple that we're not getting to here. I'll run through them in like 30 seconds here real quick. So my number one productivity principle is always look for multipliers. What's a multiplier? So something in your business, in your life, in your relationship, something you can eliminate something you can automate, or something you can delegate. So we always start with eliminate, because if there's something that you shouldn't be doing, you don't want to automate it, and you don't want to delegate it, because now you're wasting somebody else's time instead of your own. So start with eliminate. Look at things you can automate. Is there a piece of technology that could do this for you? And then delegate. So, I've been looking through Darren Hardy's Insane Productivity again this week after he told me I needed to dive back into it. But this is productivity, is just keep your eye out for these multipliers and think through it. And then my problem solving principle, and for mastermind guys, you've seen this before, it's ideas in equals ideas out. So feeding your mind material, constantly reading, you're consuming podcasts, your brain goes to work on problems even when you're not thinking about them. And that happens, it happens subconsciously, and it happens naturally. So the more you feed your brain, the more you get out of it. Another awesome book here, Originals. He says, procrastination is a vice for productivity and a virtue for creativity. I really believe that problem solving is a creative endeavor. So if you're feeding your brain, you're taking time away, your brain's still working on the problem. Your brain makes connections automatically. The more you feed it, you give it more possibilities for connections to make. So that's my favorite kind of problem solving and learning little principle. So why EXP for us? And this first two are the principles that helped our decision making. And we're looking at these guys like Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, and it's easy to look at them from the outside and say, well, these guys they're crazy risk takers. They're so courageous. They're not afraid to put it all on the line. But if you talk to them, they all say that they are master risk mitigators, not risk takers. So what the principle here was, when we looked at EXP, we said, what's the potential upside and what's the potential downside? Well, the potential upside is an incredible revenue share line. It's stock awards. It's getting plugged back into the Honey Badger group. The upside is, it's exponential. It's almost unthinkable what the potential upside is. And what's the worst case? What's the downside risk here? And we honestly couldn't really think of anything. Yeah. Our business is not dependent on the brokerage that we work for. It's dependent on what we do to bring value to our clients. We're spending more money to be a part of EXP than we were as a independent brokerage with our caps now, but it's negligible compared to the upside. So what's the upside? And it's massive. And what's the downside? It's so small. And if the worst case scenario happened and we never recruited anybody into our revenue share group, we never got our caps and our stock awards, well, we're a real estate team out there selling real estate still. And what's the difference between what we were doing and what we weren't doing? So that's the way we thought about this process. It's a no-brainer when you look at the upside versus the downside risk. And then the other principle that was big for us in this one is it's who do you learn from? And one of my personal kind of values is I'm careful who I learn from. One of the reasons I love learning from you, from Jay, from Michael is there's so much transparency. Hey, we tried this, it didn't work. We messed this up. Hey, I think we're really onto something here. Here's what we did that we're having success with. So I'm careful who I learn from. And you just can't ignore the type of people who are switching over to EXP. These are not agents who chase the shiny objects. These are savvy business people. Many of them own multiple businesses. Many of them have grown incredible teams, incredible brands. So these are the people not only that I've learned from in the past, but these are the people that I want to learn from going forward. If I can be plugged into that, man, that's pretty exciting. And then on a more practical level for specifically our team, my business partner, Seth, is our top salesperson. And our goal is for him to get out of production. And we know that getting out of production is hard enough, but getting out of production doesn't mean getting out of the business. When you get out of production, you've got leadership responsibilities, you've got way more, responsibilities outside of sales. But that's our goal for our team, is that we don't rely on Seth's personal production every day. So we've seen how challenging it can be to build a team up to the point where you can get out of production. Well, we can build our team while we're building our revenue share. And what we're hoping is if we do it right, that will speed the process of him getting out of production so he can focus on coaching, training, and then we can focus on VRX as well. So, yeah.
That's
a quick
awesome.
version on those last few.
Yeah, no, I know we rushed through there at the end, but that was absolute gold. Hopefully, there's definitely some nuggets there that you guys can use in agent attraction and questions you can ask people you're talking to. Let's talk about the upside of you making the move. Let's talk about the downside. Let's who are you learning from? Let's look at all of these heavyweights in the industry that have made the move, and there's something to be said with that. Let's take a look at that, and then definitely this model is one of the best models that there is a clear path to get you out of production. And if you're not careful, it'll wreck the whole, it'll wreck everything you're doing. And this model really allows for it. So Joel, what's a good way for people to connect with you, reach out to you, if they have any questions or anything that they would love to dive deeper in on?
Yeah, so email is best for me, and it's just Joel at anchorpointrealty.com. I'll post that in the group as well, but Facebook message is fine too. I'm in the Honey Badger group, and EXP Workplace chat would be fine too, so I'll check all three of those.
Sweet, man. Joel, I appreciate you, man. Amazing call. And thank you for adding value and being a true expert mentor and helping everybody out today. For all of you guys on the call or listening to the recording, man, share with us in the Facebook group what was the one biggest takeaway for you. And also, give some love to Joel. These guys and ladies take the time out and just jump in and add massive value back. And we really appreciate it. I know a lot of you guys do too. So let's just give them some love and share what some of your takeaways were. So cool. Appreciate you, Joel. Thank you. Thank you guys. We'll
thank you.
Catch you guys next time.